guys, well, I'm out in the garage and I'm just kind of getting my bearings here on the installation of the X-axis datums here. I just want to kind of do some preliminary checks just to see where I am, what kind of readings I was getting. It's really good. And then I did the same thing on my X up against these dovetails here. And so now I'm going to I clamped this up just to kind of check this, and that clamping method's not going to work real well. The datums, I finished them all up. They're all countersunk, and what I did is on the back side I came back and just hit them with a countersink to make sure there was no burrs. And then I have taken a oil stone, and you want to just kind of go over it and get all the burrs. You can hear the change after it removes the burrs. You can kind of hear the difference in the tone, so you know you got it, and you can feel that they're smooth. Okay. Also, I went down this edge here just to remove any burrs that might have been on there, and just to clean up this surface here if there's any little high spots. Just kind of went over this surface as well on both sides. And I did the same thing for the X-axis, and I'll do I'll do that on the Z-axis as well. So yeah, I'm just kind of doing some preliminary checks, trying to go over the procedure in my head, how I want to go about doing this. But this is an important step, so you want to make sure you get it right. I'm going to be drilling these holes with a self-centering door hinge type drill bit so that I can get the holes lined up. Alright, so I went to my local Harbor Freight and picked up some of these 2-inch C-clamps so I can clamp this datum to the X table. I tried doing it with just the spring clamps, but it just wasn't working out. You need something that's going to be secure, so I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do about the base and the column, but for the X table, 2-inch clamps seem to work. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of going down and getting this datum as straight as possible. It's actually turning out to be kind of difficult because it only just the bare movement, you can just see just barely. I mean, 1/10 of an inch is not a lot. So I know that this edge here and this edge here are parallel. I've checked them. I've went with my soapstone and cleaned all these up so that there's no burrs or anything on there, and I can pull this along rather smoothly. But as you can see, I've got this first 8 inches or so dead on. It's really important that you start as tight a tolerance as possible, because what's going to happen is the rail is going to sit up against this datum. Now, I do have the opportunity to shim between the datum and the rail before I bolt the rail down, but if I can get this as straight as possible, that's just further along I'm going to be when I go to do the rails. So I think the plan is to use a zip bit. Thank you, Wyatt, for that vocabulary. Zip bit, and just use it to drill. I use these for door hinges, so I think I can use this to help me keep lined up and centered in my hole. And what I'll do is I'll drill and tap a hole, I'll come back and check, move on to the next, and I'll just continue on down the line. So I think that's going to be the best method to kind of keep this rail lined up. Then I can remove these clamps, and after it's bolted, and reposition the clamps as I go along. So that's going to be the plan. So I'll get set up and start doing some holes, and we'll recheck. Okay, so I've drilled and tapped the very first hole. I've screwed it in there and double checked. Make sure we're still good. In this area right, hard to do here. Alright. This area right here, we're still good. And then now I'll just move on. I'll maybe do this next one here. Skip one and do this one. Check it. And then just kind of alternate back and forth. There's one right up under this clamp. I'm going to, I'll probably do this one and then come back and do this one. Alright, so let's drill a hole. What I'm doing is I've got, this is a 9/64 zip bit. This is spring loaded, and it gets full of gunk here. So I make sure I put some fluid in there, some oil. This is just tapping fluid that I make up. It's 3 parts motor oil, 1 part kerosene. And I can just clear this dovetail with this bit here. So let me see if I can drill it with the camera in the way here. Let me get this out of the way. And see if we can't drill this hole. It only goes down so far because it's spring loaded, so what I do is I change it out and just put in a 9/64 drill bit and finish the hole off. And hit it with a shop vac. I want to make sure the hole's deep enough. And then on this one, it went through to the pocket that's underneath here. There's a groove actually where this line is. There's the groove for the T-slot. I could probably keep going and just drill all the way through. I don't have it quite deep enough. Let me see, make sure. Oh, he moved. But that should be good enough for the screws that I'm using. Alright, so now I'm just using a M4 by M47 high-speed steel tap. I'm using a drill with a clutch, and I've got it set to 5. This stuff taps pretty easy. Just want to make sure you're vertical as much as possible. You only really need about 5 turns to get the full strength of the screw you're using. So bear that in mind. Clean this mess off here. I'm going to hit it with the shop vac again, see if I make sure I can clean out any of that residue, the chips that might be in the hole there. When you're dealing with tents, cleanliness is always the way to go. So I'll take this all up and clean it all up before I do the final install, but it's always good to keep it as clean as possible as we go along. I'm just using some M4. How long are these? These are, it's not going to say on here, is it? Well, let's see how long they are. I think they were 15s, maybe 20s, I don't remember. 12s, alright. So 12 millimeters long, overall length. These are for the Datums here. Put that in. See, it's nice and flush. Not going to have any problems with clearance with our block. Now we can check it again just to make sure. We're not going to move here. Alright. Still looks good. Alright. So far, so good. So, I'm just going to kind of keep going back, skipping a hole, going back and forth until I get this section done, and then we'll move on to the next section. Alright, finishing up the last hole here. Alright, now that I have all the holes done, I'll zoom this thing out here. So now I have it all mounted. I'm just going to check it and then pull it up, come back and clean it up as much as possible and recheck it. I know that there's going to be dust particles and from the boring operation up under there. So I want to make sure that it's nice and clean. Let me see if I can, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but you got to be real meticulous about moving this across here. Just the slightest little bump and it throws the needle. So I don't know if you can see that on the video. I'll try to get a close-up of that, but alright, I removed the datum. I cleaned all the holes, got up as much debris, cleaned it all up real good, and remounted it and rechecked it just to see where I'm at. You can see I'm pretty good all the way across within a couple of tenths. So now I'm going to go ahead and bore and drill the other side. Alright, well, I've got the other side just kind of clamped into place and did some preliminary checks. I had to use a 1-2-3 block up against this rail here. It was just a little too tippy. So this way I've got this magnetically clamped to this, and it gives me a little bit more width surface there, and it seems to glide a little bit better without being too tippy. I've got this 6 inches right here set real good. I've kind of went along and checked each section and got it really close. I've got it clamped into place, and what I'll do is just like I did with the other side, and I'll just bore a hole, thread it, check it, skip a hole, just kind of move my way down, keep reclamping and checking as I go along to get it as parallel to this rail, this datum, as possible. The tolerances for the RG series is 1/7 of an inch parallelism, so they need to stay within that. I don't think it's going to be too difficult getting those tolerances. One thing that's important that I think I should mention is you want to give yourself a little space between the datum and the dovetail, because I'm not quite sure the way this dovetail falls into this groove. It's on this bottom edge right here, and I'm not sure how straight that is. So you want to give, I've put a shim here and a shim on this end, and you can kind of see there's a little bit of a gap, and that will give me the ability to move this datum in and out ever so slightly to keep my tolerances. If I were to just jam it up against here, and then somewhere down the middle, if it was pushed out and I needed to push it in, I wouldn't have the ability to if I didn't leave this little bit of distance here. So just wanted to point that out. Alright, well, I finished up the second side here. Now I have both sides with the datums complete for the x-axis. It actually went a lot better than I had anticipated. I think boring the holes by hand allowed me to make very fine adjustments as I went along. So I think that actually worked out better. Let me see if I can show you here. I'm within a tenth or two all the way down, so I'm pretty satisfied with that. It only takes just a little bit of movement on the indicator here to get it to move, so I'm pretty satisfied with the parallelism between the two. For the RG series rails, it needs to be 7/10, 0.0007 parallelism. We're well within that, so it should be pretty good. Stay tuned. In the next video, we'll start mounting the rails. Again, I'll be boring those by hand, but we'll just keep progressing as we go along, and we'll get the rails on, the blocks on, and then we can take our final measurements for our saddle, and then we can work on the y-axis and the z-axis. That's going to wrap up this video for the x-axis datum installation. In the next video, we'll start installing the rails. If you have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to comment. Thumbs up if you like the video. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not. Thanks for watching, guys, and most importantly, be safe.